What's up, everyone? This is John with Archer Film. Well, today we lost a giant of the industry, my absolute favorite screenwriter, the GOAT, Robert Towne. I actually got to meet him. I met him and his brother, Roger Towne. He's also a screenwriter. Roger Towne wrote The Natural, the amazing Robert Redford movie that's got one of the greatest moments in film history when he hits the lights with the ball. It's a fantastic movie, a fantastic scene, but yeah, I got to meet both brothers, and when I met Robert Towne, I was just kind of in awe because he wrote Chinatown. Chinatown, which he won the Oscar for, is arguably the greatest script ever written. You gotta thank Roman Polanski as well, because as director and as screenwriter, they worked very well together at kind of challenging each other and what they were trying to say about the broader world. Famously, Roman Polanski fought for the dark ending because I think Roman Polanski knew something about dark endings. That's why all of his movies tend to have a little bleakness at the end. He just knows something more about life. But Robert Towne and the way he crafted that script, it's almost like an onion, it's revealing layer upon layer of not only corruption, but of human behavior and the depravity at which these, super rich people are willing to go in order to get what they want. I think there's a couple films in history that really illuminate the darkness in the human soul. One of them is Chinatown, one of them is Seven, and one of them is Salo. And I think they reveal something about the powerful that run the world and the darkness within them. And Chinatown, if you've not seen it, is an absolute masterpiece. Very entertaining. Jack Nicholson at his absolute best, and John Huston as Noah Cross is just disturbing. The final scene, the showdown between the two of them, you really get into that insight that I was talking about, the darkness in the human behavior. He also did a lot of ghostwriting work. He's one of the most famous ghostwriters in Hollywood. He's worked on some of the absolute classics of that era. We know that he worked on Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Beatty. We know he worked on McCabe and Miss Miller for Robert Altman. Robert Altman also has a few masterpieces under his belt. He worked on The Godfather for Coppola. He actually beat out Coppola, who was nominated for The Conversation for Chinatown. He also beat out one of my personal favorite films of all time, Day for Night, and Francois Truffaut. But Chinatown, it warranted it, I think. He also wrote The Last Detail for Hal Ashby. If you've not seen Hal Ashby's films, he also has a handful of masterpieces, under his belt, including Harold and Maude. It is fantastic. Jack Nicholson, again, at his best. I think he's always been at his best, to be honest with you. He wrote The Parallax View for Alan J. Pakula with Warren Beatty. It is an excellent conspiracy theory thriller, one of the first of its kind, and it's got a great twist ending. So if you've not seen Parallax View, check it out. He did Yakuza with Paul Schrader. It was Paul Schrader's sort of breakout, Paul of his own sort of thing. Paul Schrader wrote Taxi Driver famously and collaborated with Scorsese on many others. Paul Schrader, one of my favorite filmmakers as well. Then he went on to do Shampoo, again with Hal Ashby. Shampoo, loosely based on John Peters, who was Barbra Streisand's hairdresser and a staple in Hollywood at that time, who went on to become a super producer and then co-run a studio. It's a pretty amazing story. He's played by Bradley Cooper in Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson's film. But in this, he's played by Warren Beatty, and it's loosely based on him from what Hollywood lore I understand. He did Missouri Breaks with Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson, two incredible performances in that, a really fun Western. He did Orca, the Jaws ripoff, that actually is not bad. Sir Jared Harris and Isabelle Huppert, and, A Killer Whale, of course. And then he went on to do Heaven Can Wait, which, was a big box office hit. He did Personal Best as writer and director, which was ahead of its time. It was a queer love story set in the world of, women's sports. Uh, and then he went on to do Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan. I remember seeing that as a kid, and it was very good. He won an Oscar for that, a really sort of dark representation of Tarzan. And then he moved on to his Tom Cruise era, working on the Tony Scott film Days of Thunder. Now, this film had so much hype behind it because with Top Gun, Tony Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Don Simpson had crashed onto the scene with their high concept, high octane, big music, big stories these big summer blockbusters, and this was no different. It's actually really fun. Next, we have The Firm, the Sidney Pollack, John Grisham adaptation with Tom Cruise. That was kind of the first of the John Grisham legal thrillers, and it's fantastic. It's really dense. What you find in some of his stuff, when he's not ghostwriting and just kind of adding great character, great scene, and great dialogue, what you find with his stuff is really dense plots, which I can always appreciate. That goes back to his sort of Chinatown days. And The Firm is no different. I really don't remember much of what it was. I just remember it was a long movie, but really entertaining and dense. Then he went on to do Mission Impossible. And once again, if you remember anything about the original Mission Impossible, the plot was really dense. You know, there's stuff going on. You get kind of confused, but it's rewarding and entertaining and a little messy at times. Then he went on to do Without Limits with Billy Crudup and Donald Sutherland. That is about Prefontaine, the runner. It's good. It's entertaining. There were two Prefontaine movies that came out at the same time, one with Jared Leto and one with Billy Crudup. I really like this one because of Donald Sutherland's representation of the guy who basically created Nike. Not Phil Knight, but the other guy who designed the shoes off of the waffle irons. So Robert Towne wrote and directed this film. It stars Colin Farrell and Salma Hayek. It's set in L.A. in like the 50s, and it's fantastic. It's a great sort of thematic bookend to his career. You know, if Chinatown is his representation of the darkness of California and Los Angeles of the 50s, this kind of has another flavor to it, in my opinion. It was actually a really good movie. And it's really enjoyable. So I suggest you seek that one out as well. Again, he's done a lot of work. He did a lot of work in TV and a lot of ghostwriting. You'd have to really dive in to see all the stuff he's done. He pops up in the lore of Hollywood from, in my opinion, one of the golden eras, the 70s, time and time again. There's great stories about him in The Kid Stays in the Picture, the Robert Evans book / documentary. He also shows up in Peter Biskin's Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. I mean, he is just a part of Hollywood like no other. He is just iconic. And again, because he was a screenwriter, it's somewhat unique. He befriended the stars, he befriended the studio heads, and he was a big player for a very, very long time. I'm so glad that I actually got to meet him. R.I.P. to the GOAT, Robert Towne.